So Victoria lived with Lisa, her flatmate, and it was a 24-hour team, 2 teams of people for both women. Each woman had a separate team, 1-to-1 during the day. Often Victoria needed 2-to-1 because the level of her disabilities were so complex. So, for example, she was a full-time wheelchair user, but as her kidneys began to fail more and more, handling her, she needed 2 people to be safe and to be comfortable for her. So this was over a 24-hour period. It helped because I lived literally 13 minutes walk away, so I was in and out all the time and saw myself as part of the team. They saw definitely me as part of the team. Centre 404, it's the service provider, they employ the staff that works in Victoria's house. And we, over the years, we've worked up a very cohesive and strong way of working where family carers, circle of support are seen as part of that team, all supporting Victoria. We don't recruit people who are trained. We like a broad canvas. We train them up on the job. And we look for people who actively listen, who come to us with an open mind and readily say, I don't know about this. And we tell them, you know, this is how we do things. And but it's people who've got the right attitude and the ability to listen and learn and really look at Victoria as the main focus. Everything else is secondary. She's the prime focus. And not everybody can do that with somebody with Victoria's complex disabilities, illnesses, certainly her behaviour, which can challenge the socks off anybody. Throughout her life, although she was a woman without words, she knew what she wanted from life. It was up to us to interpret and then give her what she wanted. And I guess she was a bit like me, an actress really, who wanted to say things. So when she saw a camera, you know, that was showtime. And I believe in also sharing our lives. And early on, I learnt to do that. So right from, I think she was 6 months old when we made a Save a Baby campaign, because she was born with a rare condition called tuberosclerosis. And it was important to me anyway that people should understand this condition. So we went on to make many other films. We did campaigns together because we wanted to change the system. So, for example, we did changing places, about getting toilets for people who use wheelchairs. She led the campaign for Treat Me Right, where people were dying unnecessarily in hospital because, you know, she'd been at the sharp end of prejudice and discrimination in the National Health Service. So we did it together. We made a blinding team. Victoria had a condition. She was born with tuberosclerosis, which is genetic, it's passed on, and it's tumours that can form in any part of the body. So for Victoria, she had it in her brain, and then tumours grew in her kidneys, which ultimately was going to result in her death. the tumours became so many, and because she was so fragile at this point, dialysis and a transplant was not viable. And also we decided, her family and her circle of friends decided, why put her through all this just for a few years? So we decided that she would die over a period of time. That was a huge decision for us to make. So we knew she was going to die, we just didn't know when. So it took about 3 years, I think, of slowly losing things. But we never knew when. And Victoria would always surprise the world. She would, the palliative team used to say to me, this is the last few days, and she would come up. That happened 4 or 5 times. But then finally, and we all knew she was near the end. And it took about a week. But she died surrounded by people who loved her. She died in her own home. We were determined that she wouldn't be carted off to hospital where there would be no dignity and certainly no control. We wanted a peaceful, dignified death for a much-loved woman. And she died very peacefully at home, age 43, with her family and staff around her. In the event, it took about 3 years of slowly fading. So we were well prepared. And we had a plan in our heads, and then we had to share it with other people to make sure that it worked. And it did work. We knew that we had to take these team of support workers on board. So we initially, I spoke very carefully with the team leader. And it was then that we got the palliative care team involved. So the team leader and myself initially met them, and then we worked through the plans of how literally she was going to die. The thing that was uppermost in my mind was, or the family's mind, was that she would die in her own bed, in her own home, not in hospital. And we knew we needed some help in making that official. And we knew we needed some help in getting the support workers to understand our reasons and to actually implement it. We did this through a series of meetings with the palliative team, sometimes enabling it, sometimes just us and the team leader. And we explained, and her circle of friends also explained, that if Victoria could speak and tell us what she wanted, because after all, we're the ones who knew what was in her heart, really, that she would want to die at home. Having made that decision, we were talking to young women, mostly young women, 19, 20-year-olds, who'd never experienced death. And initially there was tension, because they wanted the best for Victoria, and they thought, saving her life at all costs was the thing. And we were able to explain, and very honestly and sometimes very bluntly, that this is not what Victoria would want, and it's certainly not what the family would want. And some support workers, if they had a religious or cultural background, couldn't deal with that. They really felt that this was something that they couldn't deal with. So they were given the option of moving to another house and working to other people, because we made it very clear we wanted people 100% with us. And we didn't think when they moved off, I wouldn't say pleased, but that was their decision, and we had to go with that. And it was better for them. It was certainly better for Victoria. Well, I think if there's family and they're aware of all this like we were, they should be guided by the family, but they should join together to actually make it happen. And they should have some, an acute care plan will enable that to happen, because you go through all the stages. And also, by that time, you will think, well, the end is going to be coming. So for us, it was important to start thinking about the funeral. And by talking about that, opens up a lot of conversations. I mean, all we did all the time was, I focused on the team leader because she would influence the rest of her team. And we're talking about a team of 15 people. Quite a lot of people. Mm. And then there was all the other fringe people, like the GP and the palliative nurse and various other, and district nurses coming in. So they all had to be made aware of what our plans were, and to actually sign up and sort of promise to follow the plan. Because you have to remember, as well as the family going through turmoil and sadness, this young staff group who are never used to, maybe never experienced a death ever, are also torn. And what are they doing with their emotions? And who's supporting them? Wasn't my job. I never saw it as my job. We would talk about the practicalities, but for the emotional support, it was their team leader. And then they got support from our psychologists, from our learning disabilities team, because it was a tough job. Mm. And you'd got another tenant in another room who could also, at any one time, they'd be supporting two women living, under extreme circumstances. Mm. I think we were recognising that slowly her life was being more restricted. So Victoria loved to be out and about in her wheelchair outside, but then she got too frail to put her in her wheelchair. She got too thin to actually sit in her wheelchair. It actually hurt her. So most of her life shrunk. It shrunk from outside to inside, to the living room, and then to her bedroom over a period of time. So we had to be inventive and think about, well, the world's got to come to her. When we were talking about this is going to happen, it's inevitable, we have to think of Lisa, who shares her house with Victoria. This mustn't be a sad house. I don't want black on the door before she's even gone. So we set up a pattern of things like, we used to have themed teas and anything that would, the house was quite often full of people, my friends, Lisa's family, my family, and we'd have tea parties and just be jolly, because it was important for Victoria to raise her spirits and for Lisa, who was watching. And also I think it helped the staff morale, because whilst they were busy trying to think of silly things to do with Victoria, one afternoon we had a Hawaiian tea party, and I went down there and they're all in grass skirts, and somebody'd got a guitar playing and they were doing all the hula dance, and we had fruit kebabs and rum punch, and it was a fun afternoon. Mm-hmm. And my friends couldn't believe the atmosphere in the house. That the week she was dying, we had friends to come and say goodbye to her. And although they might have cried outside, they certainly didn't inside. Mm-hmm. They just made it a very positive. And we made it very positive. And we made it very positive for the staff. Mm-hmm. We sat and we talked a lot as to the staff team, and particularly the team leader. Mm. And this is what we did, and they brought all sorts of things to her life.
And how much do you think Victoria realised or understood that she was fading and that she was dying?
It's difficult to say, really, because although she was never able to explain anything to me as her mum, I used to tell her everything that was happening, and I used to say to her, "Lovey, you can go whenever you want. You know, just when you're ready, you can just close your eyes and just go." See, they pick up, even maybe she didn't understand, but they can pick up from your body language and your, almost what's in your heart. Victoria could pick up what I was feeling. She could pick up what her staff were feeling, because if you came in with a bad hangover or were fed up that day, that's what you got back from Victoria. Because I used to say to them, leave all that at the front door. When you step over, 100% please. Because if you're ratty, that's what you're going to get back, because she'll pick up your reactions. And people with profound disabilities do. She stopped eating. It was a battle to get her any food into her for about a year. And then about a month, she really didn't want to eat. So I think, I don't know whether she knew in her heart, just stop this. And the palliative team told us in those last 48 hours, don't give her anything, because it will make her even more uncomfortable. But when I look back now, I think that was her way of saying, well, it's enough, I'm going to go. I don't know, who can say? I think she coped with great difficulty. When your kidneys fail, all sorts of things happen to you. You get nauseous, you itch, you're just generally uncomfortable. Even just to wash somebody or to turn them is quite painful. And Victoria always had a strong spirit. And I think 2 years in, I was talking to her, because I used to see her every day during this period. I just used to sit and hold her hand. People held her hand a lot, just stroking her hand. And I said to her, you can go whenever you want, lovey. Just go. This is no good, is it? This life. And I don't know whether she ever understood me, but I'd done it with my own family, so I didn't see that any reason why I shouldn't say this and mean it to my daughter. But Victoria was always, she'd always do things in her own time, and I think she chose her moment and timing of when to go and how to go. But those last years weren't easy for her. Well, she'd had a restless night. I'd been with her all day, and she'd had a restless night, and the member of staff on had never seen anybody die. And she told me she was really, really nervous, because I said, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the early hours. Norman and Tara had gone home to get some sleep, and at about 2:15, I was just in the kitchen making yet another cup of coffee. And she came and she said, she's making funny noises. And I came back in, and the whole bedroom was full of light. The bathroom door was open, and I said, no, we must turn everything off. We just left her fairy lights on. And I found this music that really used to make her relax, and it's called Namaste. It's monks singing and bells and stuff. Very peaceful. And I put some of her favourite lemon joss stick things. And I said to Emma, she's going to go soon. And she said, I can't. I said, just calm down, she's going to go. Just hold her hand, tell her you're here. And then her breath changed. I said, she's gone, Emma, she's gone. And I just held her in my arms for a bit and sent Emma out to make me another cup of tea and to go and call Norman and Tara. And it was very peaceful, and she looked beautiful. All the pain lines had gone, and her skin had become pink again. It wasn't yellow. And I'm not sure whether she had a smile, but she looked relaxed. She looked so relaxed. And then her sister came, more tears, and then her dad. And then I said, and now we're going to give her the final gift that we can give her. We're going to wash her and dress her in the clothes that we think would be good. And Emma and her sister were so shocked. They said, oh, we can't. I said, yes, you can. It's the last gift we can give her. We'll change the bedding and we'll make her look beautiful. And they were so pleased that they did that in the end because... And the other extraordinary thing was Emma... Victoria was incontinent, so she went to get the pads, and I said, no, for once in her life, she'll just have these pretty knickers. I'd bought this pretty underwear for her, and we had special clothes that me and Tara had chosen. And because she was a colourful woman, so she went out in her pinks and reds, so that was good. It was a good thing to do. She was uncontrollable, Emma, when she came to get me. She was shaking. And she told me she'd never experienced death. And she was frightened of it. And I said, there's nothing to be frightened of. There's nothing to be frightened of. It's part of life. And I need you calm. I need you to be calm. Because Victoria needs you to be calm. And that sort of rallied her, really. I think had I had a choice, I wouldn't have chosen Emma, you see. I would have had Ruby, who was the night staff. But Ruby couldn't work 7 nights a week. She wasn't allowed to. But she asked me if she could, and I said, no, Ruby, I probably need you for next week when it's going to get even worse. Because this could have gone on for weeks. The palliative team said she could go on like this for weeks. But in the end, it was only 1 week. So that one night when Ruby wasn't there, Emma was there. And she hadn't experienced it before. But I think that's, in all probability, that's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
That's what life's like. And you have to think, you have to think about... And that was the beauty of having that very detailed end of acute care plan, because we'd gone through it. We talked about it as a staff group. We talked about, she will not go to hospital and what you would do to prevent her going to hospital. And Victoria's team certainly knew she was dying. What we didn't know was when. So it was important to everybody that we actually said that she was dying, and not all these stupid euphemisms like passing going on and all that nonsense. And it was particularly important for people, young people. These were young people who'd never experienced death before, support workers. And initially they didn't want to know, the hand came up and the face turned. And then we gradually, and we had the support of a psychologist. The team had the support of a psychologist, and they were able to talk amongst themselves about death and dying with the support of a psychologist. But we talked about it a lot, and we particularly talked to Lisa about it, because she'd lived with Victoria for 24 years. We didn't know how much this woman understood. But it was very important to us that she knew that her flatmate was not going to be there. The other family carers found this very difficult, wouldn't talk about it, wouldn't talk to us about it, didn't want to talk to their daughter about it. But we felt we had to, with the support workers, to talk to Lisa and encourage her. She was in there having, you know, the tea parties and the saying goodbye. So we looked at it straight in the eye and dealt with it. The fact that I turned all the lights off and was playing calming music, I couldn't play that music for a year, Irene. And I played it and then I looked at the tracks and it says, oh gosh, I can't, end of my suffering and you're in my heart. So she died to you're in my heart.
Oh.
Wasn't that beautiful?
You're all going to get the hankies out now.
I just didn't know, and I couldn't look at it for a year. And the music is so beautiful. And music was her language, you see. And I mean, what better way? And in fact, Caitlin, her team leader, said, if I want to go, that's how I would go, like Victoria, with fairy lights, with people who love me, and to beautiful music. So I always think, as well as she could, Victoria lived happily, but she actually died majestically, if that's... I've been struggling for a word, and it is majestically. And wouldn't you want to wish that for your nearest and dearest? All I can say is that when a death is good, then a lot of the pain goes. And Victoria had a very good death. And it helped us as a family. And I know it helped the support workers. Because they tell me now, the ones that are left, they've said to me, our life would never be the same again. Working with Victoria and seeing her through that time, we'll never be frightened of death again. And Victoria's left a huge legacies, and that's one of them.